Hey everyone, I'm Ellie Perlman. I'm a real estate investor and a syndicator. You can catch me on today's episode of the Jesse T Show.
Ellie Perlman, welcome to the Jesse T Show.
Hey Jesse, great to be here today.
It's so awesome to have you. We've been in conversation and we've connected a few times, and you have a crazy, amazing story. You're a badass. And for the few people in the world that haven't heard about you yet, could you just give us a little context on who Ellie Perlman is?
Yeah, well, that's a much deeper, know, uh, question, who I am than I was getting ready to what do you do, which is very different than who I am.
Yeah.
But let's see. So what I do, I'm a real estate investor and a syndicator. I used to be a lawyer in my past life. I think that was maybe over a decade ago. And I started just working really hard to get into a good law school. And shortly after I started, I realized that that was not for me, which was a major heartbreak because I worked so hard to get to a really good school. But I took a chance and I quit my job. And long story short, I ended up going to MIT, get my MBA degree, start Blue Lake Capital. And today I buy multifamily properties. So I improve the operations and I renovate units and make the communities a lot better than they were when I bought them. And I do it with investors. I invest my own money. Investors put, their share. And we buy properties. Mainly, we talked about earlier, right before we started recording. I love the Atlanta market where you are. So this is one of the prime markets where I buy, but also, Texas, North Carolina, and other, growing markets like those markets.
You have this unique, perspective coming from really placing everything all in one basket with becoming a lawyer, right? And anybody who sets out to have that type of profession, lawyer, doctor, these esteemed like professional careers, they place everything on becoming that thing, and it's almost like a professional athlete in a lot of ways, where their whole life they're groomed to do one thing, they're groomed to be one thing, and being someone who's been involved in sports in my life, and also the flip side that would parallel with this, the military, there's a problem for a lot of athletes in military. And I'm assuming, this is where I'm going with you, that once you take off the uniform or the jersey, so to speak, and once you take off that lawyer hat, there could be like a little bit of an existential crisis. Like, what do I do now? So, was there any of that for you where you worked your ass off so hard to get into one of these top law schools and I'm a lawyer now? And A, what kind of law did you practice? And then B, how did you respond to shutting that career down?
That's an excellent question, Jesse. So I think my story actually starts a little bit earlier than that. I grew up very, very poor, and my
How
friends
poor?
always
Let's
made
talk
sure.
about being poor. I was poor.
How poor? We often used to open the door to our house and see boxes of food for the holidays and clothes that my friends were donating for charity. And then have this memory of wearing, seeing Mickey Mouse blue shirt. And I was so excited because my parents never bought me anything with, nice. And that was nice in my standards back in the day. And I went to school so proud of my Mickey Mouse shirt, only to find out that it was one of my friends that donated it. And it was actually their PJs and I had no idea. For me, it was a nice
Wow.
shirt.
Yeah.
And they teased me for it, and they made sure that I remember that I was, poor for years to come. So it left its mark on me. And I didn't realize that I was poor at the time because that's all I knew. When I was 11 years old, I have a memory, carrying water in a bucket, and just going to clean synagogues so my parents can get, I think they were paid maybe the equivalent of $50 for like 2-3 hours of work or something
Wow.
like that.
Yep.
So for me, I didn't feel like I was poor. The society around me, my friends, quote unquote friends, right, reminded me of that. And at that point, when I was starting to understand where I am, I think it was around the age of 9 or 10, I started to feel, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually poor. And I started thinking over and over and envisioning how I'm not going to be poor anymore, how I'm not going to open my door and need to, get food for the holiday because I wouldn't be able to pay for my own food.
Yep.
Um, and that understanding kind of shaped I think, my personality. And I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I didn't know how to do it, but I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I'm not going to be poor again. I'm not going to be poor again. Um, which led me to work really hard to get into law school. Cause in my mind, I didn't know how to become wealthy or financially independent. And all I had was my brain. I was a huge nerd, and that's what I had. And that's what I used. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a lawyer like all the TV shows that I used to watch. Used to be, I don't know if you remember, Ally McBeal back in the day. And I said, wow, all those nice suits and fun at the office and interesting people. That's going to be me.
Yep.
And that's what I did. I worked really hard. Um, when I was 19 years old, before I got to law school, I fell in love, and I thought, if you love someone, love is enough. And that didn't work out, you know, as I was expected. But while I was married, I was working two jobs, and I was saving money for college, and I was working hard and taking more and more exams, improving my grades so I can get into a good law school. I didn't want to get into just any law school. I wanted to get to one of the top class law schools, because in my mind, if you work hard and you get to the, you get to the best place that you can, that's going to be a great, you know, um opening scene for you. And I wanted to get to the best and biggest, law firms. And I started imagining starting a big, law firm and growing from there. And that's what I did for many years. I think it took me actually 2.5 years to have good enough grades to get into law school.
It's amazing the types of success you see from people that have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, right? Like, and growing up, you're essentially, kids are ruthless. Like, kids are bullies when they're young. If you don't have like the new sneakers, the new clothes, like they'll give you shit for it. And I grew up very humbly myself in Boston. I remember times where we had a great apartment that was right on the water in this place called East Boston. So we overlooked an inlet to where the airport was or is. And so, like you, I didn't feel poor. Like, I didn't feel, but I noticed things. I noticed the things that we went without that other people had that were kind of standard. And one of those things tended to be heat in the winter in Boston. So I can, I can remember times where I was, laying in bed, waking up, and like I was breathing, I could see like the differential between my breath and the temperature in the house. And so my mom would turn on the stove to try to heat the house. And obviously it didn't reach my room, but it heated up that side of the house. And I remember one time I was waking up on a weekend. I'm still, probably in my early high school years. And I had two dogs, and the dogs wouldn't stop barking. And I'm just like, shut up, I'm trying to sleep. Like, just shut up. And then I finally get up pissed off, like the dogs wouldn't stop barking. And I open my door and I see smoke, and there's smoke in like near the ceiling. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I run towards the kitchen. There's black soot on the kitchen ceiling. And my mom, who was like into like candle making, I guess, or something, had left something either in or on the oven, whatever it was. And it just basically caused the oven to catch on fire. And I opened the door, and like a fireball shot up to the ceiling. Wow. I had to call Boston Fire Department. They came in, they sprayed it down. And like ever from that moment, I was set on, with other things that had led up to that, I was set on my personal journey on how to create wealth. And so, I've become a wealth manager, and I've helped people become wealthy, and I've been able to build wealth for myself. But it all started because I was poor when I was younger, and I never wanted to have those moments again. And then for my future family, I never wanted them to go through those things either.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's, you make a decision very early on if you're going to be if you're going to take the situation and turn it to the best, or you're going to be a victim. Because it's so easy to say, oh my God, I'm poor. My friends are teasing me. I don't have, we didn't even have TV when I grew up, and until until later. You can dwell in your sorrow and self-pity, or you can say, you know what? This is the situation at this point. I can't change it, but I'm going to do whatever I can. So when I'm ready, I can get out of this situation. So, my friends were laughing at me, whatever. all I did was sit at home and all day just study and study and study to get, straight A's. And that's what I did. And some people would say, you know what, that's kind of sad. You don't have, friends. I did have friends, not many, but most of my time was dedicated to study, to learn. So I'm going to have good grades. So at some point, I'm going to be able to get out of this situation. But what you did, similar to what I've done, which is deciding at this pivotal moment, I'm either a victim or I'm going to be a winner, and I'm going to start building my future out of this step by step.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that mentality. And it's one of those things where I was getting bullied for years, and I was like, I'm already getting my ass kicked. Like, what do I got to lose? Like why not just do like, and that's kind of what created this kind of like rebellious, kind of even playful mentality in life, is like, once I learned how to defend myself and got into martial arts, and all these things changed for me, and life just, got so much better. I put in the work on the other side of it, which was like what you did, which was taking this shitty hand that you were dealt and being able to pivot and start to deploy discipline and work ethic and getting into, what would become your career. And so when you were kind of probably fantasizing about what life could be like, and like you said, like Ally McBeal, taking these fun meetings and living this posh lifestyle and just having fun, what did that actually look like when you became a lawyer? What kind of law were you practicing? And when rubber met the road, what was law really like for you?
Nothing like I've seen on TV. Nothing. I ended up at the working for one of the top law firms in Israel, and they had a really good real estate department. And I wanted to be in real estate in some capacity, because at that point when I was in college, I started looking around and trying to understand the wealthiest people in the world, the most successful ones. What do they do?
Yep.
And every time I looked at every person, it all came back to real estate in some capacity. And so I've decided, okay, real estate is the way, but how do I do it? I don't have enough, money to buy real estate. And I said, I'm going to practice real estate law. And I took a lot of real estate classes in law school, and I ended up in a very good, law firm in the commercial real estate department. And I was negotiating contracts. It was right before 2007, right before the crash that
Oh
caught
yeah.
me in the middle of my legal career. But pretty early on, I realized that it's not what I've imagined. I would sit down with my clients, and they would talk about this like, amazing development projects that they're working on, or that they're buying multifamily properties in. I remember it was in Eastern Europe. And I was fascinated, and I felt, boy, I'm on the wrong side of the table. You know, I was sitting near, a senior partner, and on the other side there was a client, and I kept thinking, how come he doesn't want to be there? How come he doesn't want to, do all the fun, amazing things that they do? And that's where I started kind of figuring out, and realizing that I may have made a mistake. And I don't like to use the word mistake. Actually, I rarely use that word. But it inspired me to find out my true passion. But I wasn't courageous enough at that point to leave. Because if you think about it, I worked for 2.5 years to get there. I worked, for 4 years. I was in law school. I got 2 degrees, bachelor and master's in 4 years. So I was working. I didn't have much of a social life at that point, because that was all I did was studying. And then I make my dream come true 7 years later, and it's not what I've expected. And even today, many, many of my friends that went to school with me either quit their jobs and they're doing something else, or they're in law, but very, very few actually enjoy it. And just, they didn't have the courage to just leave, because it said, we're trained to think, oh my God, we spent so much effort and energy into something. Even if we suffer, we need to stay to justify all the hard work so far. And I say, why? Why? You should take it and pivot it, and find happiness and be happy and fulfilled. So, but I still didn't have the courage. And at that point, I started to see blurry, and I wasn't sure why, and quickly figured out that I found out that I had this I call it mysterious eye disease, because it's pretty rare. There's no I read about it. Nobody knows why it happens. Basically, your eyesight is being distorted,
Mm.
and there's no cure for it. They use cancer patients, medicine to help treat it, but it's not perfect.
Yep.
And I remember driving back from the hospital to the office with an eye patch. And I didn't even take days off. Right after the treatment, I would get in my car and drive with one eye open, go back to the office. And the doctor said, "You have to rest." And I said, "No, no, no, no. I have to go back. I have things to do in the office." And as I was healing, it took about a year, year and a half. I got the courage. It gave me perspective and courage. And I said, "You know what? You've been through this. You almost lost your eyesight. You fixed it. You're good now. What's so scary about leaving your job? That's not the scariest. It's not as scary as it was a year and a half ago, because losing your eyesight is much scarier." And that balanced my, kind of diminished the fear and balanced my perspective. And so I quit my job. I didn't even have a job that was lined up. I said, "You know what? I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. This is not fulfilling for me. I need fulfillment to be happy." And I quit my job. Somehow got into property management. And after 4 years, it was just a friend that called me and said, "Listen, one of our clients, another lawyer, one of our clients is looking for a project manager." And I was promoted to a property manager. And 4 or 5 years later, I said, "Okay, now it's the time. Now it's time to take the next step." And I basically moved to the States, and I went to Cambridge to get my MBA degree. And shortly after, started Blue Lake Capital and started to buy, real estate.
Unbelievable. I mean, just the perseverance and the life experience that was necessary to catapult you through that mental hurdle of kind of going out and doing what you really wanted to do. And it took your physical impairments and like stress that was overwhelming, probably adding to that, right? And it took all
Yeah.
these things that were a perfect storm to come together. Have you heard the name Tim Ferriss before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Didn't he write the four week
yeah,
workday
yeah, the
or
4 hour work
4 day?
week.
Yes. Yeah.
4 hour work week. He's got Tools of the Titans where he interviews,
Yes.
these amazing people and what they do, and he's amazing at trying something new and adopting it very quickly at a high level. And the idea that I thought of when you were speaking about it and why he came to mind was there's a lot of people that have fear. And fear can be two things. It can be a demotivator, like it's a headwind, it's pushing against your plane of life, or it could be a tailwind and pushing you forward, and how you perceive those things. And he talks about how whenever he's trying something new, he always starts with the baseline: is it going to kill me? Like that's where his mind goes. He's just like a funny guy. He goes, is this going to kill me? Okay, I'm not going to die by doing this. Okay, now he starts working his way back, and he's like, what's really the worst that's going to happen? And once you can start framing things kind of in that kind of comical, playful way, but it's true. It's like, is this going to hurt me or someone else? Okay, no, checkpoint. We can go there. Is this going to do X, Y, Z? Am I going to lose the farm? Can I get the farm back? Like whatever those things are, you start to realize that it's the fear and just the thought before the action that's really gripping people from not moving. But once you take that first step, another great kind of way to illustrate this, Will Smith talks about your best life is on the other side of fear. And he ended up having this huge aversion to going skydiving, but he was basically coerced into doing it. In the morning of it, he was going to back out. And his friends got him on the plane somehow. And basically they knew that he wasn't going to jump out of the plane. So they lied to him. They're like, we're going to jump out on 3. And they were like 1, 2, and they like went out with him. And so he didn't even get to 3. And he said, as soon as he left that plane, it was pure bliss. It was the best thing he ever did in his life. And now he does all this crazy stuff like bungee jumping, skydiving, like all this crazy stuff. But it was because the fear that gripped him. And it's the same thing for you, where you were concerned and worried, and then all of a sudden you felt liberated once you started doing this, right? And you've completely tapped into this power and this business. And so talk about that a little bit. Talk about the transition once you stepped into Blue Lake Capital from being, this lawyer that's built up this career. What was that transition like for you?
It took some time. So it wasn't, from quitting my job, then, moving to property management and then going to MIT. I think at MIT, I actually became even more courageous because I saw, people were sitting in class. First of all, it was a very humbling experience. I used to be the star in every, in law school, in high school. I was, one of the smartest people there. And then you're in class, and I said that with the utmost, I'm very humble when I'm talking about it, because when you're sitting in class and there's the smartest people in the world. I've never met so many smart, just brilliant people. And you start feeling, okay, I'm not the star. Everyone is a star here. And even among the stars, they were so smart. And several, of the people who were just sitting next to me, they look like, the average Joe. They've exited companies, millions of dollars, and then they came to MIT. I don't know if for fun, or I don't know why they even needed it.
Shits and giggles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you look at them and you say, wait a minute, if he did it, he doesn't have this halo. There's nothing special about what there was, but there's nothing special that you can't do.
Yeah.
It became very real to me. And I said, you know what? I can do it. And I love, MIT. It really opened up my perspective, and I learned a lot about business. And I took that information and that perspective. And when I started Blue Lake, I actually, I treated it as a startup. I ran it lean. I pitched investors the same way that I would if that was a startup. And I learned a lot of things and implemented it. So I guess my view is a bit different. And I know your view as investment manager is also different than the average managers out there. I remember from our conversation. But that's, the transition was not immediate. It obviously took time. And even if you overcome a certain fear in your life, doesn't mean that you overcame all fears. It's still, when you take the next step, you still need to go through, at least for me, the same process until you grow. And then the next step, the same process. So, the first deal that I bought with investors, yeah, I had a little bit of a concern whether we can raise the funds or whether we can, actually perform, right? That's, everyone can buy anything, but can you perform? And then, up to, I think, when was it? 2.5 months ago, we closed on our biggest acquisition. That was an $80 million deal. There was not a fear, but again, you stop and you say, am I going to do it? Because that was significantly higher than the previous deal that was 30 million. And so you still meet those little voices that, they either tell you you cannot do it, or those voices are telling you, this is going to be one hell of a ride. That's going to be amazing. And you should, bring 110% of what you can do. That's going to be fun. Let's just do it. And sometimes both of those voices live in your head, and you just need to decide which voice you're going to listen to.
Yep. It's the tale of the two wolves, right? Like if you feed
Yeah.
the good wolf or the bad wolf, like which one wins? The one that you feed the most. And it's the same thing with fear, like the acronym face everything and run, or face everything and rise. Right. And so you can continue
I love it.
to double down and bet on yourself and be afraid, but let the fear be a motivator. Like in martial arts for years, after being bullied, I wanted to stop being bullied. And, it's weird now because when I'm doing, like, I do Muay Thai kickboxing and some jujitsu, and I'm the type of person now that, like, when I get hit, I go further into danger. Like it in a weird way, it turns me on. It's like, I'm excited in a like a carnal, like, badass way. It's like, okay, you got me, now I'm going to come get you, but being logical about it and like being in the moment, and it just gets you hyper aware. And I feel like you talked about with going back to the overnight success thing, and most people, most people don't, when they start a company, they don't start a company that's a rocket. Like, it doesn't always just take off. There are some that do, right? But for the most of us, that's probably like, the 1 to 10%. But for the most of us to start a company, it takes some time. And my mentor, one of my mentors, he talks about how he's the 20-year overnight success. And he's doing all these amazing things now, but he's been running his business for 20 years. It takes a little time to get to different levels. You can, and success is relative, right? Success for someone starting out is getting that first client. Success for someone who's been in business for a while is making sure they're hiring and keeping good people. Success from there could be branching off into another location or doing something else. And then from there, success can turn into stop trading time for money, where you've exited your business and maybe it's still run by other people, but you can go out and do different things. And then what you talked about, some of your friends from MIT, they've exited the business completely and sold it. And, they've probably had 7, 8, 9, 10, figure deals on these exits. So as you're getting into your industry and your business and you're learning about real estate syndication and you're growing your company, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you first got into it, and kind of how did you work through those?
One of the main challenges were the desire to have a deal right away. And it took time, I think 7 or 8 months until I got the first deal. And then another 6 months or 7 months until I got the next deal. And so I see many people that even if they overcome fear and they're starting a business or they're starting to buy real estate or whatever there is that, it took them time to get to that point, when they started and they take the first step and it doesn't happen right away, they give up and they say, you know what, this isn't working. Well, like you said, success doesn't come overnight. It maybe some edge cases, you see a lot of people who become, internet sensations and with platforms like TikTok, that can happen. But if you ask me, it's not sustainable. You have to be patient. And, I made a conscious decision to be patient, that I understood that for 6 months, nothing really happened in terms of income or deals. I taught myself to be fine with it. And at the same time, I was making progress on building my brand and starting to get, more brand recognition, more investors that reached out to me. So I shifted my focus into focusing on the things that I did right at that time, that I felt like I was progressing. So I wasn't just sitting at home and doing nothing. But patient is so important. And if you don't get it right away, like you said, first year or 2 years of operations, many businesses are not profitable. Doesn't mean that you failed. I mean, look at Elon Musk. How many years have he been trying to do what, he needs to do? Amazon, it took them, I think, 10 years to become profitable, even after, they were very strong and recognizable brand, which the strategy was different to get a market share, not necessarily to become profitable.
For sure.
But if you look at their financials, for many years, there was no profit. Does it mean that they've failed? No. So that's what I do. I look at the most successful people and I learn from them. And I say, okay, they were patient. They didn't look at the bottom line income as a metric for success right away. So it means that as long as I'm making progress, I'm going to be fine.
I love that perspective. And I love this innate ability that you have to seek out those that have achieved at what you want to excel at and plug into them. And whether it's, thought leaders from afar that you can kind of learn from them, or people that you plug into directly with mentors, it seems like you're able to seek out and find and implement the information that kind of helps you in business and in life. Where did that come from? Where did that seeking out and, the other side outside of seeking out is a lot of times establishing relationships with people that can help you and vice versa. Where did all that come about?
Establishing relationships. I'm not sure if there was, a specific strategy around it. It was just seeking for people who were either in my position for support or were more successful that I can learn from them. So I found out where they hang out. First year, for I would say the first 18 months of operations, I would go to every real estate event out there. Some of them were completely waste of time, but retroactively, you didn't know that, right? But I met some people. I met some interesting people that influenced my life later. I met people that I've bought real estate with. I've met very few investors in those conferences, but at some point, it wasn't about information. It was more about meeting the right people. And every person does it differently. For me, just hanging out where successful people hang out, that for me, that was the thing that helped me the most.
Yep. It's one of those things. It's show me your 5 closest friends, I'll show you where you're going to be in a few years. Right. I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
Warren Buffett says that a lot. He's like,
Hmm.
show me your friends, I'll show you where you're going to be. And there's this idea that I was taught years ago, the rule of thirds, right? Or the 33% rule. And have you heard of this before?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
It's basically saying that all of your contacts that are in your day-to-day life, business, personal, whatever, have them in three different buckets. The first third are the people that are ahead of you, the people that are, whether they're mentors, whether they're, colleagues, whoever they are, coaches, family, friends. Those third of people that are up here can be the ones that help guide you and teach you about things coming up in life or in business. The next segment is the people that you're at, your colleagues where you're at now. So you're in the trenches with them, you're learning with them,
Hmm.
you're going through battle with them, and like you can share these experiences and that camaraderie and like these best practices, so to speak. And then the next rule of third, the last one, is people that are on the come up, people that are looking to, get into real estate syndication, people that are looking to, start a podcast or start a business. And then you could turn around with all that wisdom and insight that you were given. And then now you can give it back to them. And so it completes this beautiful circle of how to do life. And it sounds like you've just kind of innately did that with just showing up, with going to these events. And I'm sure some of them were awkward, right? Like you go to a networking event, it's
Yeah.
like you don't know anyone, you have like a name tag, it's like this weird thing, like, hey, how are you? It's like kind of transactional. And then all of a sudden you learn how to get really good at those things. You learn how to navigate, you
Yes.
learn how to, and some stuff because I've been in networking and I've started networking groups and different things. And it's one of those things where you just try to make it, you realize it's a human on the other side of that conversation. And if you can break the ice, whether it's a joke or something funny, I think that's where the rubber meets the road is investing in people and creating those relationships. And I'm sure for you could probably attest to this, that without those awkward networking events, without those ones that were a complete waste of time, the ones that were valuable, if you didn't go to those, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I try to make a rule for myself that even if it looked like nothing is going to come out, out of this event, to try and connect to one or two people that it's not going to be a, waste of time. So in one of the events that I went to, quickly realized that, at some point it might have been a good event maybe 2, 3 years ago, but most of the people there were, just aspiring syndicators, very inexperienced. And I thought, I don't have much in common with them. This is, I'm not going to buy large deals with them. But I did meet one investor, and he said that he wanted to be a KP, key principal, meaning just to team up with new sponsors and sign on their loans if they don't have the right net worth requirements,
Yep.
to sign on a loan for a piece of the equity. And I took his, information, and I kept in touch with him. I was in touch with him for a while. And when I met other syndicators that were just starting out that asked me, what do I do? I don't have enough net worth to sign on a loan. Then I would say, you know what? I have just the right person. And I started connecting them with that person. I didn't get anything out of it, and today I have people reach out to me and say, hey, do you need someone to KP on your loans? And I don't need it at this point of my career, but I'm connecting them with people that I, like you mentioned, the third, the people that I know that are trying to get there. And I don't want a commission, I don't take any compensation for it. For me, just the way of giving back, because when I was in their shoes, I met some people that helped me make some connections that were beneficial for me. So just my way of just returning a favor to the universe, I don't know, in any way you call it, it's satisfying for me. It's just another kind of moment of happiness, or hey, I may just help someone close a deal, and that's that feeling is enough for me.
You're doing your duty is just being a good human being, number one.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it too, because I have this conversation a lot where I connect people. We were connected through a mutual acquaintance,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this is how business and life
Yeah.
is done. I think the best levels is reaching out to people and saying, how can I be of value? How can I be of service to you? And making connections for people, whether those are business connections, personal connections, whatever they might be. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest secrets to success is relationships, and it's in the way of connections. It's in the way of plugging in or introducing people that I think that can add value to them, and not looking for anything in
Yep.
return. And what happens is that it's a funny little thing called karma. Like everything just
Yeah.
kind of seems to work out, and not that you need a coin, so to speak, not that you need payment for making that relationship happen, but you're at the very least doing someone a favor. And a lot of that, it's like that whole how to win friends and influence people. The more you help people, the more you're going to help yourself.
100%.
Yep. Beautiful. So now when you're talking about real estate syndication, and I know about it to a degree, talk about that first deal where you were like, anybody can buy a property or at least get into a property, but then it comes down to making it perform. How did that first deal work out in terms of performance, and how do you get a deal to perform versus just spending money on an asset that just sits there?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually my first deal, I was bidding on a deal and I lost it to someone that I knew that was much more experienced. So after he got the deal, he called me and he said, "Hey, do you want a partner?" And so I found a way to bring value and a partner on the deal. So he was managing the deal and I learned a lot from it. And I felt comfortable in that position, even though I wanted to take a lead on the deal. But I knew that, okay, my investors have invested with me. It's my first deal. And, basically I can learn from this. So the next time where I'm going to buy a deal, I'm going to manage it, then I know a little bit more about managing an asset. And of course, I had, my experience as a property manager. Um, and so to the next question that you asked me about how you make sure that you perform, there's so many ways to do it. I think it starts with really finding the best property management company out there, because they're the ones who are going to sit at the property. They're going to do the day-to-day management. And then the question is, what do you do with it? Do you let them run the show and passively receive reports and financials and you're good with it? Or, which is what I do, look at every line item in the financials and basically say, how can we increase the bottom line? How can we push the income? How can we cut some of the costs? And, get on regular, phone calls with them, meet with them, with the management team, to talk about what's going on, to understand, okay, with COVID, what do we do? How do we react and react quickly? So for instance, when COVID just started, or when we were first became aware of it, that was around March. One of the first decisions we've made, that was probably, I think it was around March 5th or so, was to go to all of the tenants that were on our properties and offer them $50 discount per month for every month they're going to pay in advance. And also we went to all the people that their leases were about to get, they were supposed to renew their leases, that their leases were up, and say, hey, we're going to renew it for 0% rent increases, just so we can maintain the occupancy.
Smart.
And so we had a very high number of people that actually renewed their leases. And we had tenants that were paying 2 and 3 months in advance. Later on, they lost their jobs, but they already paid us in advance. So by the time they found a new job, there was no, gap in payments.
Unbelievable.
So,
Like it's
yeah.
super helpful. And it ties back to doing the right thing and being a good human. And then from a practicality standpoint, in any business, and this is in my world very heavily with financial planning and wealth management, wealth creation, a core bedrock, a core tenet of any successful business or family is cash flow, and being able to have money and being able to be free to make decisions when opportunities come up or when disaster strikes. I just put together a class. It's on how to keep more money, how to make more money, how to stop trading time for money. And the bedrock of all that is cash flow and being able to have enough money to be able to do what you want to do in life. And so I'm assuming that in the real estate syndication game, there's probably lots of opportunity to ramp up cash flow, right?
Yep.
How does that work in your world? Like what are some opportunities where you can really turn up the volume on increasing cash flow every month for your business?
Well, I'm going to share some of it with you because some ideas are kind of our secret sauce. But one thing that we do is basically find properties that, have a really nice exterior, but the interior, the units themselves are not that great.
Okay.
So, units with carpets throughout, that's a bit outdated. So what we do, we rip it off and we put vinyl sheet or faux wood flooring, and and the unit looks a lot better. We basically modernize the unit
Yep.
anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000, and then we basically say, okay, before the unit was renovated, rent was, let's say, $1,000 a month. Now, because there's granite countertops and wood flooring, now it's worth $1,200. That's the new rents, and that's one way of really pushing rents, and pushing the income.
Well, you're
And
also
yeah,
making sure that people want to live there. So your occupancy
yeah,
rate is probably going up too, because people want to live in a
yes.
nice place.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Even though sometimes it's normal when you buy a property at 98% occupancy, and because you raise rents, it drops to 94% occupancy. As long as your bottom line net operating income increases,
Yeah.
that's more important than, 100% occupied,
Less
properties.
fires to put out too, less headaches.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
Well, very cool. So where is the company going this year? What are some of the goals, and what are you looking forward to in 2021?
So we're still, we're actively looking for deals in 2021. I'm hoping to buy at least three, but it really depends whether we're going to see a deal that fits our criteria in terms of the vintage that we're looking for, and the returns for our investors. We're trying to hit at least 7% cash on cash and 13% IRR. So if there are deals that don't hit these metrics, then we're just going to pass. Hoping to buy at least 1,000 units this year. And if it's not going to happen because there aren't good deals out there, that's also fine. My main goal is to keep performing on all of our other assets and actually overperform by the end of the year. That's kind of one of my main goals, because if investors get higher returns than was originally projected, then they're going to just keep investing over and over. And I'd like to increase the percentage of increasing investors, those who basically come back and invest on every deal. And we have those investors that invest on every deal based on the current performance. And one of our goals is to increase that number.
How do you get repeat customers, repeat clients?
Yep.
Is under promise,
Yep.
over deliver.
Yep. Exactly.
Business. It's when business is going good when you can do that. So that's very cool.
Yep.
Amazing context, amazing journey. Thank you so much for sharing everything on your path to success and your continued success, and hoping that this year is the best year that you've had so far. But she's the amazing, the mighty, the powerful Ellie Perlman. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.